Thank you, Judge. You're talking about discussions that she had with you about Cade sleeping upstairs in the days leading to Ryan's killing, correct?
Yes.
And at some point in your questioning, did you ask her if there was a conversation that she would have had with Cade about going to sleep upstairs?
Yes.
During that conversation, did she tell you that she probably could have had that conversation and told him to go sleep upstairs?
At one point she said she probably did, and then she said, yeah, it was likely that that had happened.
Do you discuss her marital relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Is that an important part of your discussions as an investigator?
Yes.
What does she describe her marriage with Ryan Cooper as being?
Fairly typical question in an interview like this. I ask a person to rate their marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, and I go on to describe that a 1 would be about as bad as it could be, and I told her a 10 would be an excellent marriage. How would you rate you and Ryan's marriage? And she said, no marriage is a 10, so took that off the table, but she said her and Ryan's marriage was at least an 8. They were a great team, and it was a good marriage.
She described herself as a pretty lucky woman.
Yes, she said she was lucky to have married Ryan, and that they were good friends and a good team together several times.
Does she talk about, do you talk about whether there were any arguments or problems in the marriage that she described as an 8 out of 10?
Yes.
Does she tell you what sources of arguments were?
Yes.
What does she say?
She says they tease back and forth, and some people could construe that as, going a little too far. But other than that, she says really the only place of contention or arguing, there could be some talk about finances sometimes.
Let's talk about that. In terms of their finances, does she tell you the nature of their finances in the farm that they lived in?
Yes, I understood the overall condition of finances with this farm and where they live to be good, that they live in I think it was a rent-free or a very agreeable kind of situation there. And so
when she says they lived rent-free, in reference to that, is she talking in relation to the Cooper family farm owning much of the property? That's
my understanding. She describes it as that Cooper Farms owns a lot of this land and this buildings, and they're able to live in that place.
Do you ask about her or their financial stability at the time of Ryan's killing?
Yes.
What does she tell you in regards to that?
She says personally they're carrying almost no debt. She mentions that just each of their vehicles still has some debt, but it's in total under $25,000 for she and Ryan's vehicles.
In terms of money-related arguments, what does she tell you that she found unpleasant for her?
She mentions that Ryan would question her about purchases or use of money, and sometimes she felt like she needed to check with him on things when it came to money because he had questioned her about that.
Was that talk related to credit card usage that she would have to get from Ryan?
Yes, I don't know if it was specific to credit cards, but she talked about needing to sometimes get permission, she felt like, to make purchases.
And she didn't like that?
She did not. She said perhaps it could be controlling, and then she said, well, I really don't think he was controlling. So she kind of softened on that, but she did not like being challenged on the purchasing and use of money.
As you talk about the marital relationship, does the name of Huston Danker come up?
Yes.
Are you the one who brings it up?
No.
What does she tell you about Huston Danker?
So as I start to probe whether there was any infidelity or thoughts of infidelity, those kinds of things, she mentions Huston Danker as someone that she had cut hair for.
And that there had been rumors that they were having an affair?
She said yes. Everybody around town had rumored that she and Huston were having an affair.
Does she tell you a time frame of how long she had been communicating with Huston Danker?
She says about 6 months prior to Ryan's killing, they had started to talk.
Do you ask her what Ryan Cooper's perception of Huston Danker, does that conversation come up?
Yes.
What does she tell you?
She said that Ryan, along with the rest of the town, was did not trust Huston. That Ryan believed, like many people, that Huston had slept with older women in the community and was not to be trusted.
So she acknowledged rumors about extramarital relationship, that there were rumors between her and Huston Danker, but when you asked her if this was true, what was her position?
She gave a strong or an adamant denial that there'd been anything, and said that Ryan had no reason not to trust her and she had no reason not to trust Ryan.
Claimed that she only cut Huston's hair?
Only cut his hair and then watched his children several times for him, babysat.
Did you ask her when her last communication or when she was last with Huston Danker?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
Several months after Ryan was killed, she noted was her last communication.
She gave you a date of sometimes in September 2021?
Yes, September 2021 is when she said she last had communication with Huston.
And in regards to that, does she say it's when she cuts his hair?
Yes, I think she pointed to that being the last time that she cut his hair.
Did you ask her about communicating with Huston Danker through Snapchats?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about the nature of communication with Huston in regards to using the Snapchat application?
I think she describes it as being fairly light usage, and nothing provocative or anything like that. It was pretty simple use of Snapchat.
And so nothing personal from Huston, just...
Right, I understood that there was little to no kind of back and forth, maybe personally, or it was very minor. Some of that would have been maybe even messages that multiple people would receive. So it was not of a intimate or personal nature.
So like a group message?
Yes, that's how I understood it.
Did you ask her whether she had wondered whether Huston Danker had killed Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I asked her that, or she commented on that.
Do you remember the nature of that part of the conversation?
Yes, she She said she had wondered, but in the same sentence she said, but everybody had kind of wondered that, or that had been kind of somewhat typical or kind of town speculation.
Did she linger on that, or she immediately moved on from it?
Very quick, a passing comment.
Did you ask her whether Ryan Cooper had ever accused her of having an affair with Huston?
Yes.
What did she tell you in regards to that?
She said, no, he would have no reason to ever accuse me of that. That's, again, where she told me that he trusted me and I trusted him, and there would have been no point in him asking me about any affairs because they hadn't happened.
You talked about being in that residence prior to talking to the defendant, Ms. Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe that residence for the jury in terms of the size, like how big, whether it's big, smaller house?
Yes, spending just a little bit of time in the house prior to talking to the defendant, it was noteworthy to me how tight things were. I'm thinking of the bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen to the living room, the areas that were described for me later by the defendant. This was all very, very close in proximity. It was small.
And we've put on the board what's been admitted as State Exhibit 313. Are you able to see that from where you are, Agent Turbett?
Yes.
When you describe the bedroom, the bathroom, from the bedroom, as you say, again, when she says, I went to the bathroom and then went and looked out of the kitchen window to the driveway, you're saying it's very close quarters.
Yes.
As you talk to her father, does she give a later account of what she thinks the loud noise would have been?
Yes.
What does she say?
So initially it was the shower caddy that she'd kind of detailed and described, and then later she said, after further reflection, she had believed that the crash that woke her the second time when she was woke was actually the screen door from the living room that sometimes the wind would catch and bang into the railing.
So now she gives you an account that what she believes it was the screen door shutting.
Yes.
Sometimes in your discussion, do you bring up the novelty or the use of forensic evidence in your investigations?
Yes.
What in particular do you share or do you tell her?
So again, fairly typical in these interviews, I share some of the technology that law enforcement's able to utilize to gather evidence. I mentioned cell phone activity very quickly, but move on to a concept, I think I refer to it as fencing or geofencing, but this is, again, where there's an ability to track people's usage of their cell phones even when they're just moving around. Advertisers are gathering data, and so beyond just using your cell phone or sending a text messages or kind of conventional pinging of a cell phone, that there's this ability to kind of draw a fence around an area and see which phones have been in the fence and out of the fence. So we call that fencing.
So talk to her about this geofencing technology. What do you observe as you talk to her about this? What do you observe from her?
She nods. She says yes. Doesn't seem surprised by the technology or our use of it.
Appear to be savvy about, have some knowledge about geofencing?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yeah, at that time, Geofencing was even less known than it is now, so you would, the typical person, when we say that thing, would not have a lot of knowledge about the use of geofencing or how we would be able to put cell phone usage in or out of a certain area.
So you talk, and so she appears to be very savvy about it.
Yes, somebody would have to be knowledgeable about technology, I would think, to understand that that was something that, I learned about through law enforcement use.
At this time, as you talk about geofencing, are you discussing the nature of the investigation and what you're seeing from what the phones will be saying?
Eventually, yes. So the conversation starts broad, just about different tools that we utilize. I talk about a couple of other electronic items that could be at our disposal, and then I draw that back to the case at hand and talk about what we'd be able to tell about what happened that night in that area.
So you tell about this, does a body language or a demeanor change?
No.
As you, at some point in this discussion, does she become agitated?
Yes.
Is that when you started questioning what she told you?
Yes, I start to move from general application of the things that we talked about, the electronic evidence and those kinds of things, to what happened that night. And she became upset with me and said I was accusing her.
Claimed you're accusing her. Did you tell her you just wanted to know what had happened to Ryan?
Yes, I encouraged her to continue to talk to me and help me understand what happened that night in the house.
And what did she tell you in that regards to what happened, if she knew what happened to Ryan?
She tells me that if she knew who had done this to her husband, she would be in jail because she would have, in her words, she would have already killed that motherfucker.
Did she, in fact, at this point, chase you out of her property?
Yes, she told me to get off her property. And that was the last thing that I had just said that she said to me, as I was still encouraging her to sit down and continue telling me what happened that night.
She told you she was hiring a private investigator
Yes,
to solve this killing of Ryan?
yes.
Now, you spent a considerable lengthy time talking to the defendant, Ms. Cooper, correct?
Yes, I believe just a little over 3 hours that day.
In these 3 hours that you spent with the defendant, did she ever tell you that she was sending Snapchat messages to Huston Danker at 3:30 a.m. on the morning that Ryan was killed?
No, nowhere in that description that I'd asked her to give me to walk through the night did she tell me that.
Did she tell you that she was awake at 4:13 in the morning or thereabouts, deleting or looking up something on her phone?
No,
Did she tell you that about 3:32 or thereabouts a.m. that morning that she and Mr. Huston Danker were talking about her remembering to pick the shell casings?
there was no mention of that at all.
Did she acknowledge receiving a text message, a Snapchat message from Huston Danker at 4:42 a.m. stating, "Yep, just woke up"?
No. No acknowledgement of any messaging between the two of them that morning.
Did she tell you that when she found Ryan Cooper in the living room bleeding, whether she rendered any aid to Ryan Cooper?
She did not tell me that she had rendered aid in any way.
She tell you whether she checked for a pulse or heartbeat or anything to that extent?
No, that was not part of any of the description of events.
At some point in your conversation, do you talk about Michael Cole's clutch that was found in the driveway?
Not specifically, but a purse or something to that effect.
What would have been a clutch, correct?
Yes, yes.
Did she explain to you why that clutch was out in the driveway?
No, she acknowledged that, that it was outside with no explanation for why it was out there.
During this discussion, you talked about her telling you about finances. Did she disclose to you that a bank had been urging her urgently to transfer money for overdrafts in days leading up to the killing of Ryan Cooper?
No.
Did she tell you that she made about 170 steps between 4:23 a.m. and 4:30 or so a.m. that morning?
No.
As part of your investigation, do you at some point talk to the man we've talked about, Huston Danker?
Yes, I do talk to him.